Right, hello boxing fans. We're here with another news update. I'm Kurt Ward and I'm joined by Alex Morris, Paul Webb, and Paul McAllister. We're going to be discussing the news that Frankie Gavin is looking like he's going to be having a massive fight in his next fight. Speaking to Fight Hype today, he said currently the Van Heerden fight is going on ahead in Birmingham on May 9th, but I've been offered the Timothy Bradley fight at Madison Square Garden in an IBF eliminator, and I've been offered the Kell Brook fight at the O2 Arena in London on May 30th. I'll be sitting down with Eddie Hearn to weigh up my options, and we will make an announcement in the next few days. Paul Weber, I know you spoke to Frankie a few times. Either of those is an extremely tough ask for Gavin.
Yeah, they're both very, very difficult fights in different ways. I think that the Bradley fight is fighting abroad against arguably one of the top two or three in the well, when you take out the big two at that division. I think Bradley looked good in his last fight. I think he's young, big money. He's certainly a big name, and I think it'd be a very intimidating place to go and fight as the away fighter at Madison Square Garden. The Brook fight is potentially excellent for him. I think it's a big fight, but it's a world title challenge, his first one. But you do feel that both of them are just at the wrong time. The Van Herden fight was perfect. It ticked all the boxes. It was a winnable fight, and it cemented where he was in the IBF. Right now, you could argue he doesn't really deserve a world title shot based on his last three or four fights. I mean, he messaged me and said, "It's interesting, isn't it, that all these opportunities are coming about after I beat Bradley Skeet. It's almost as if he knows that it's a bit daft that this is going on right now." And I feel like for him to fight Brook, they could have made that a standalone fight later in the year, and it would have been a lot better if he's coming off a win over Van Herden. I'm not sure what option he'll take, but it's amazing that he's got two potentially very lucrative and very, very big fights. And if he does get added to that May 30th bill, that goes from being a very, very good show to a hugely good show. So we'll see what happens.
Alex, what are your thoughts on Gavin and these two fights? Which one should he take?
Um, Ideally, he's got to take the one that gives him the most money, really, because I think he loses both of them. Uh, he gets probably even, I was going to say he'd get more exposure in the Bradley fight, but the only exposure he'd get would be getting exposed as a fighter. I think that Bradley would, school him a lot worse and probably hurt him a lot worse than Brook would. Brook might just knock him out or stop him early, but I think that Bradley might be a bit of a beatdown, unfortunately. Ideally, you think that the Brook fight would pay him a bit more. It's just home turf. He'd make a big deal out of it. It would probably be on the what's looking to be the pay-per-view card featuring the other two world title fights. Maybe that he won't get as much money on that card simply because it's the pot is being shared around a lot more. But I think that he would be better off taking the Brook fight simply because it gives him a bit more, a bit more of a name at home. It gets his name out there. There's still options for further fights down the road, I think. I don't think that losing to Tim Bradley on some sort of either an undercard or as the main event would really boost his career that much. Whereas, fighting Kell Brook would probably boost it a bit more. Like I said, I think he loses both. Before Gavin lost against Bundu, I really did rate him as one of the best in this country who could probably beat Kell Brook. But after just seeing this constant disappointment and his lack of motivation and just the very just blasé nature that he has towards the sport, then I can't see him beating Kell Brook anymore.
Paul McAllister, your thoughts on these fights? Give much chance to Gavin, or who do you think he has the better chance against?
Um, I don't think he's got any chance at all of beating Kell Brook. I think if he fights Kell Brook, he'll be taken out in the first 3, 4 rounds, like Jojo Dan was, if I'm honest. And if that happens, then that's his career, I think, over at any sort of relevant level, above domestic level, because who's going to offer him a big fight after that, after getting blown out in a world title fight? And I'm convinced that would happen. And if he goes over to fight Bradley in America, okay, he might get schooled and he might get beaten up, but I don't think he gets stopped by Tim Bradley. I really don't, because who does Tim Bradley ever stop? Fights like a Bradley as well has the odd hot and cold performance. I don't think Gavin would beat Bradley, but maybe he wouldn't be embarrassed as badly as he would be by Kell Brook, because styles make fights, don't they? Kell Brook's got power, Tim Bradley hasn't. Kell Brook would want to impress the fans on the night and would go for the quick stoppage, whereas Bradley, I think, would just view the fight as a run-of-the-mill fight, keep busy fight, and he'd just be content to outbox Gavin. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because if you lose a points decision, there's always the chance that you get another fight down the road, you'll get another opportunity. Whereas if you just get beat up and blasted out, then you're likely just going to be forgotten about and thrown on the scrap heap.
I mean, Paul, do you agree with that Frankie gets blown out by Kell Brook?
No, I don't. I'd back Brook to win, and I think Brook would win widely. But Gavin, he's not been in with lots of good names, but he very rarely takes a shot. He took a real nothing, what looked like a real nothing shot from Bundu that just sort of slipped in and dropped him. But besides that, in the fight, he took the shots well. I know everyone's going to laugh, but in his last fight, like I said, he took 12 punches in 10 rounds. Yes, he was against an absolute no mark, but even when fighters are in stay busy fights like that, they're still going to take a few shots. He's very solid defensively, and I think it would take Brook quite a few rounds to figure him out. Once he does figure him out, I think he's just too big for him. I think he's too big of a welterweight. I think he'll hurt him, and I think he will get through. But I think Brook goes the distance. I think that Gavin goes the distance. I think actually, as apt as it sounds, I think Bradley would have more of a chance of stopping him than Brook, even though Bradley's not a big power puncher, just because I think Bradley's just so precise with his shots. And I think Bradley can match him on a boxing level. I think Gavin is a better boxer than Brook is. I just think Brook's a much better fighter than Gavin probably ever will be. So he doesn't win either, but I think he goes the distance with Brook, and I think he gives him some real problems.
I think with Tim Bradley as well, he's very strong physically as well, isn't he? And he gets inside, and he's one of those fighters that he doesn't seem to have one great thing about him, but he's good at everything it seems. And I think he doesn't punch hard, but I think he punches hard enough, especially when he gets inside. I think personally that both stop him. To be honest, I just think, when I think of Gavin going against these two great fighters, as Kell Brook has shown that I think he's on that level now, world level, obviously. I think back to the Bradley Skeet fight, and yeah, it was a horrible fight, but if you're so talented and you should be above that level. I don't think you struggle with a Bradley Skeet, to be honest. And that's, no disrespect to Skeet. He's a decent young fighter who could have a decent career. But I just think that fight was close. I thought Gavin, deserved the nod in the end, but a lot of people thought, the opposite, and I could see that, to be honest. And I just don't see how he's going to deal. He couldn't deal with Leonard Bundu, and Leonard Bundu is a good European level fighter, but he couldn't deal with him, and I just don't see how he'd deal with the speed and power and size of Brook, and just the physical strength. And I think Tim Bradley can adapt. He's shown. I mean, he's been in the ring with Pacquiao. He showed he's a much better boxer than people think when he outboxed one Manuel Marquez. I mean, Alex, can you how can Gavin come out of these fights? If his stock rise, if he's not going to win, because they both could be bad beatings for him.
The thing is, the size difference is the biggest issue in these fights. I think that we've all said it, and a couple of people will dispute it, and obviously Gavin himself will dispute it, but we do think he's at the wrong weight. The size difference between Gavin and Kell Brook would be, you'll see it on the night if they do fight. It'll be like a lightweight fighting a light heavyweight. The size difference will be absolutely huge, as well as the strength differences and the power differences and things like that. And I think the only way Gavin really does well is if he gets a point, it goes to the point and goes to the decision, and he doesn't just run all night. He actually manages to look, slick and very strong. But in the end of the day, he'll be overwhelmed, I think, just by either the better accuracy of who he's fighting or the pure strength.
I think I'll get your. Let's say he fights Kell Brook on May 30th. Alex, I'll get your prediction first. How do you see that one going?
Kell Brook probably stops Gavin late. Yeah, I would say sort of 8, 9, 10 rounds. I think Gavin really confuses him early on, but Brook will just wear him down because he's just a lot stronger. You could just literally lean on him, and I think Brook will win.
Paul Webb, what's your prediction for that fight, Gavin and Brook?
I think Gavin's ahead after 3 or 4 rounds, but then Brook figures him out and then dominates the second half of the fight and wins a fairly wide decision, 116, 112, 117, 111, something like that. But I don't think that Gavin goes down, and I don't think he gets badly hurt in the fight.
Paul McAllister, you're going for an early knockout for Kell Brook.
Kell Brook to knock out Frankie Gavin in rounds 4 or 5, and he might go down in the rounds before that. I don't think that fight's competitive at all, really.
What about Bradley? What's your prediction for that fight if he takes that one on? Paul McAllister.
I think Bradley wins the fight very, very widely, but I don't think he'll knock Gavin out because I know he's very strong and he's very precise, but I just don't think. I think it would be the same as Lee Purdy, Devon Alexander. It's just Gavin won't be in the same state that Purdy was in. He won't be weight drained. He won't be getting beat up so badly that he's not even throwing any punches. I can just picture it being like that fight, but it would go the full 12 instead of ending early.
Paul Webb on the Bradley fight prediction.
Yeah, I think it's the much tougher fight. I do really rate Bradley actually, and I think that he'd probably. I think it'd be an awful fight for a start. I think the two styles wouldn't go well together at all. I think Bradley wins. Like I said, I think I give Bradley more chance of stopping him than Brook. But that's the fight I really don't want them to make because I think it's just a horrible fight all round. I don't see much need there's no need to make it. I don't see much positivity going that route. I think they should stick with the Brook fight if it's available, and go for that for May 30th.
Alex, Bradley fight
Yeah,
prediction.
I think that it would be quite a dirty fight. Actually, I think that because of the technical ability that will be on show, I think it'll be quite full of headbutts and that. You know what Bradley's like with his big old chrome dome there. So I think there'll be a few headbutts on the inside, clinches when the jabs fail or they try and mix up a few punches on the inside. And I think Bradley will just get the better of him because he's stronger, and I think he'll win a wide points decision in a very ugly, boring fight.
I think my predictions. I think I agree with Paul McAllister on the Kell Brook. I think Kell Brook will get him out early. I can see it being a bit like the Dan fight for me. I don't think Gavin defensively will be able to deal with someone as fast and powerful as Cal. And the Bradley fight, I can see Bradley just beating him down. It'll take a bit longer because he doesn't, he hasn't got that one punch power. But I think once he gets inside, Gavin has nothing to keep him off. He hasn't got the punch, he hasn't got the physical strength, and Bradley he'll just work away at him. And I can see him either being pulled out or just referee stoppage. So I think they're both tough fights for Gavin. Hopefully, he'll take the one that gives him the most money, and he gives a good effort. I mean, that's all you can ask. He's got nothing to lose. In all reality, no one will expect him to even win a few rounds. No one probably expect that of him. So if he can go out there and give a good performance, then his stock can rise. But he's got to take the fight now. I think his career after the Bondu loss and the switch to Matchroom and his last fight, it's not very high at the moment. So he needs a big performance, and he's going to need a performance we haven't really seen against two really good fighters. I'd like to thank Alex Morris, Paul McAllister, Paul Webb, who's had to just go off now. Please leave your comments in the YouTube and keep listening. Cheers.